you see the images of 10/7, and if you want to say it's political or it's too complicated, then that is something that you're going to have a vertical conversation with God about.
When you talk about pro-Israel support in organizations, one of the first names that comes to mind in the last 50 years is Pastor John Hagee and the organization he founded, CUFI, Christians United for Israel. And today I get to sit down with Sandra Hagee, his daughter, who is the chairman of Christians United for Israel Action Fund, to a conversation about why it's important to stand with Israel today and combat anti-Semitism, and how Christians United for Israel is going about doing exactly that. Sandra, I just saw you. We were in Auschwitz in the March of the Living, and 18 months ago, if you would have asked me if this was relevant, I would have said, look, it's a thing of the past, and here we are. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and you're sitting here as a representative of, as far as I know, the biggest pro-Israel, and definitely when it comes to education organization, I think, in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
And you were telling me before we started rolling that we're at a place now where there are people, especially in the US, that are starting to veer away from the traditional understanding of Israel and clumping us in together with other problem countries.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we why are we getting messy and dirty in Israel? Why are we getting messy in Ukraine and many other countries? What is that sentiment, and how are you dealing with that?
I think the sentiment is people like what they understand. And especially now in the digital age, when you have like 15 seconds or less to change the hearts and minds of people or to get people's attention, they like what they can understand, like in a bumper sticker. Mm-hmm. When they hear things like forever wars, and they hear things like secure our borders, and they hear things like America first, it's not that any of those things in and of itself are wrong or not valid goals. But when you start to lump Israel into every other foreign country, every other foreign war, simply because it is perceived as a difficult situation or messy or like not our sink, not our dishes, right? Like we don't have any business there. There is a very real danger where people are deceiving themselves mm-hmm. and saying, I love Israel, I love the Jewish people, but, and it doesn't matter what but is, but we need to secure America first, we need to take care of ourselves first, even though taking care of your own and protecting your country and securing your borders or what have you are all valid goals. When you are doing the but and inserting that there, you are saying that your support for Israel is conditional, as if it's like a policy issue. Mm-hmm. And for Christians United for Israel, support for Israel is not a policy issue, it's not a political issue. It's a biblical issue. It's a matter of faith. The Bible, Genesis to Revelation, is a Zionist document. We understand the Jewish contribution to Christianity can never be repaid. Judaism does not need Christianity to explain its existence. Christianity does not exist without Judaism. Mm-hmm. Judaism gave us the prophets. Judaism gave us the first family of Christianity, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. Judaism gave us the Bible. The Bible says if they, the Jews, have blessed you in spiritual things, then you, Christians, need to bless them in physical things. How do you do that other than praying for the peace of Jerusalem? That's why our membership is so engaged on this issue, because it is a matter of faith. This is not a feeling. It is as sacred as reading your Bible, praying, and taking communion. What can you do to stand with Israel and the Jewish people? And so our goal is to always educate our members and not allow themselves to be deceived, weaponized, or usurped for talking points from the other side, that this is not a political issue, this is a biblical issue, and we are to do what we can to stand with the people of Israel.
I hear you say all these things, and I have to say I think I understand the people that say the but. Mm-hmm. Because they say, yeah, I get the Israel thing, I get the Bible, I get all of this, all that jazz, and yet, what about our education? Mm-hmm. And what about our own internal problems? What about the cartels on the Mexican border? And all this very long list of things. And I think the disconnect is on the fact that they think the two stories are not connected to each other.
Certainly.
And maybe that's where the issue is because it's not, you could easily say, well, this is one problem, here's a different problem altogether. My mind is, in the way I look at Israel, everything that happens here affects other parts of the world.
Of course.
And I think a lot of people, you get that, CUFI gets that. A lot of people miss that connection where it's all intertwined to each other.
100%. Like everything else in the Bible, Matti, right? If you believe the Bible, you're doing it because it's in the Bible. But the Bible is not a frivolous document, and it's not just asking you to jump through hoops to see if you're obedient.
Yeah.
Everything that the Bible tells you to do also happens to be the right thing to do rationally. If you were to look at support for Israel totally agnostically, if you're going to say, hey, we want to invest in military defense, what better way than to give a country a lot of money, to use that money to spend in America, to take our weapons, to make them better, to share that technology with us for free, and oh, by the way, fight our shared enemies for our shared values without sending a single person from America over there to do it. Just as Israel did in 1981 by saving the Western world, bombing the nuclear reactor in Iraq, right now they're facing the same enemy. And for anybody that thinks this is not about the Western world at large, they are sticking their head in the sand and being willfully blind. I get that it's a lot, and just because it seems like a difficult solution doesn't mean that it's not simple to understand. Israel is God's chosen people. Jerusalem, the Bible says, is a city where God keeps his name. If Israel doesn't exist, then God is not real. If Israel doesn't exist, then the Bible is a lie. And you cannot separate Israel, God, and the Jewish people. It is a three-legged stool, and you do not have one without the other. And that's why we do what we do. We teach our people that, yes, of course, it's a matter of faith, but it's also a matter of fact, that this is the right thing to do. And if we can't change your heart and your mind at the faith level, then we hope you will at least agree with us on the rational level. We don't do what we do to make sure that Israel is okay. The Bible promises us, your help, Israel, your deliverance will surely come. But you, us, America, Esther, whomever, throughout history, if you don't do what you can, worry about yourself. We don't do it to make sure Israel's okay. The hubris in that statement is shocking. We do it to make sure we survive.
First, I'm going to say that if you're ever looking for a job, I think the state of Israel needs a new foreign minister. You do a better job explaining Israel than most of our government does.
Thank you.
But to your point, I think you make a very powerful point. And the point is that it's all bundled together. And there's two thoughts here. One is, and I say this even about myself, we hear a lot of the rhetoric coming out of the radical Islamic world, and we, in a very prideful Western way, choose to ignore what they say. Or I should say, in past tense, we, in the past, chose to ignore what they say. They say openly, Iran says, you are enemies. Israel is the small devil, and Satan, and the US is the great Satan. And we plan to destroy their way of life and everything that they represent. And that's it. There's no need for interpretation. We're very clear about it. We're honest people. This is what we want everyone to know. Here it is. The Houthis have it on their flag. Yeah. Death to America, death to Israel, victory to Islam. And we looked at that and we said, oh no, let's just give them McDonald's, or let's just give them whatever it was, jeans, and they'll be happy with that. And that's not true. They're very honest about what they plan to do. And we in the West chose to ignore that. And then we also chose to ignore the fact that it's all bundled together. That Israel is only part of something that's called Judeo-Christian values. And that our success and our comfort in life and the fact that our countries thrive is testament to the opposite about them. Yeah. It proves that their theology is wrong. I think I get called into reserves October 7th in the morning. And that first couple of weeks of the war, the rhetoric in Israel changes. Like the way we discuss ourselves changes to going back to like a biblical war. Because we realize we're fighting against Amalekites, a morally corrupt people that want nothing but destruction. And everyone sort of had like this switch in their head. It's not about quality of life. It's not about politics. It's not about, none of that. This is biblical and spiritual. And I think, and maybe you can correct me, a lot of people around the world have had that moment of awakening, of realizing that this isn't about geopolitics. And it isn't about who's sitting in whatever office. It's about something that's spiritually rooted, and then it manifests itself in very, very complicated ways that people often misunderstand. Right. And I think our job is to educate them on that and give them that information.
Exactly. It's light and darkness is simply the absence of light. Yeah. And your job is to shine a light on the truth. We call them the sons of Haman. Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, Hitler. Where are they? Yeah. I'll tell you where they will end up. They're going to end up where the Ottomans are. They're going to end up where the Pharaohs are. They're going to end up where the Turks are. As Israel's enemies are integrating Russia, China, Iran, America cannot isolate America cannot isolate itself. This is not about lack of civilization or clean drinking water. Israel, the most moral nation on the face of the earth, has fed its enemies, given their enemies water to drink, entire cities, hospitals, medicine. Israel has done everything that it could to show their enemies what Christians are supposed to do in the Bible: love their neighbor as themselves. That doesn't change anything. If you look historically at the enemies of Israel, these are not stupid people. No. The Pharaohs were not stupid people. The Germans were the most sophisticated people on the face of the earth. The Iranians, the Persians, they invented chess, okay? None of these people are ignorant. And we want to do things, like I said in the beginning, people like what they understand because it takes the burden away from them. There is no more onus on them to try to fix it. If I understand it, then I can control it. And this is not about people that just need a better shot and that have a short stick. Mm-hmm. It's very simple. One side wants the other dead. And Israel, when you're asking for Israel to stop, you're asking Israel to commit suicide. Yeah. There's no gray.
I love that you made that statement. People are often saying, well, why don't you negotiate? And how do you negotiate with someone whose their opening bargain is, we want you dead and everything you value in life gone from this world? What is the middle ground on that? Half of us dead, half of our values gone? There is no middle ground because they call for death and destruction. And you're correct in the spiritual side of it. My sense is, and I live in Israel, I am an Israeli, we look at international press, and we had this sickening feeling in the beginning of the war that all these people who we thought were educated and we thought that they knew how the world worked and we thought they were on the side of, let's call it the forces of light versus evil, they wake up a week into the war, 2 weeks into the war, and they say, let's go and chant death chants about Israel. Yeah. And we look at them, and I think everyone here collectively sees this like, they clearly don't know what they're talking about. And they clearly don't understand what they're chanting. From the river to the sea, then people ask them, what river? We don't know. What sea? We don't know. Where is Israel on a map? They're very confused about it. And I feel like it's not necessarily a lack of information. Someone's hijacked their minds and possibly even in a subconscious way embedded them with thoughts that they weren't aware of. And it was almost this trigger of anti-Semitism and trigger of hatred towards the people of Israel that I don't think anyone saw coming. Maybe someone did.
You say anti-Semitism, and the word is actually Jew hatred. Yeah. William Marr invented anti-Semitism because the word Jew hatred is just so ugly. And so they needed a word to make it sound, neater, fancy, nicer. Yeah. And so now it's not. I am not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Zionist. I am not anti-Zionist. I'm social justice. I am not against the government of Israel. I'm for BDS. I am not against the Jewish people. I'm for DEI. Yeah. Any acronym you want to throw at it. They are usurping our language. Irving Roth, of blessed memory Holocaust survivor, said to me in Poland while he was showing me where he said goodbye to his brother for selection, it began with words. And we are allowing our words to be weaponized, and we are falling in line. I will say to the Israelis over here, I can imagine if you turn on the American media, you would be very discouraged. I promise you, that is the minority of people in our country. It is what the media likes to pay attention to because it's good for clicks and it's good for viewers. The majority of the American people are on the right side of history concerning Israel. That does not mean that we are not vigilant, and that does not mean that we will be lazy. If you slow down, you will get lapsed. There's no finish line in this race, and so we are always doing everything that we can to make sure that whether it's from the right or from the left, theologically, spiritually, whatever it is, that we make sure that we are plugging the gaps and that we are not going to allow our love for Israel to be weaponized against the nation of Israel.
How would that be done?
Well, you see it happening now, and I'm not going to get political because, again, for us, this is a biblical issue, but you see it happening now when people say, if you're Christian, then you should care about the innocent Palestinian children and all of the innocents that are dying. And if you're Christian, then these things that are trying to be done in government or whatever, they're against Scripture. It's an effort to de-Judaize, rather, Jesus Christ, who, by the way, is a Jew, and an effort to draw a wedge between Christians and Jews. First century Pharisees tried it. It's not new. And one of the reasons, the reason that Christians United for Israel was started in 2006, which was 30 years after Pastor started a night to honor Israel and had spent those 3 decades preaching against replacement theology, was that Ahmadinejad said Israel is a one-bomb nation. And if there's anything that Pastor learned from his dear friend, Rabbi Scheinberg of blessed memory, it's that we know what to do with our enemies, and you should believe them. And so we said, if we could just, Christians are not different in terms of we're not a homogenous group of people. We'll invent things to disagree on, right?
Absolutely.
But if we can just agree and unite on one thing and stand united on one thing to ensure that whether it is at the community level, whether it's at the church level through replacement theology, whether it's at the campus level through BDS protests, Apartheid Week, whatever, whether it's in Congress through anti-Israel legislation, that we have a response at every single level, that no matter where anti-Semitism is found, that we are able to confront it again, because it is the right thing to do, and it's to ensure our nation, America, and our survival. We know what the Word of God says concerning those who turn their back on Israel in their time of need.
So we're living in a time, like you've said so much, I have to unpack. This research paper comes out, I think, the end of last year, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and it was alarming. Like, it shocked me so much that I went back to read through all the documentation. And in a nutshell, it says the world is becoming increasingly anti-Semitic, so much so that there are a lot of people that hold anti-Semitic ideas or worldviews without actually knowing the source of those worldviews. And then it went another step to say that Holocaust denial has become such an issue because it's no longer Holocaust denial as in an active action of saying, I disagree that these events took place. It's a lack of awareness of the story even existing. And I read that, I was like, this is absolutely horrific. Like, in my mind, I was like, no, it must be discussed, it must be talked about, people are educating about this. Not only is it not, you're finding out that all these countries that you thought would never even reach this discussion, Asian countries, African countries, it's like a prominent worldview in those countries, and they're taken over by that. And I look at that and say, well, all the efforts of the Jewish community, CUFI, countless different people, how are these people being taken hostage by these evil ideas? How are they not aware of what's really happening? And how do we find hope in this situation where it's so negative in the trend that's taking place?
Well, I think they're totally aware of what's happening. Let me say this, I do believe that some of them absolutely believe what they're saying, and that is concerning. I do think that some of them, influencers and whatnot, are driven by clicks. And in the TikTokification of world policy and politics, I think that if that gets them the most views and the most attention, right or wrong, then they're going to double down on that message. And so, it's about, to your point, reframing, right? Well, Winston Churchill wasn't the hero that he thought he was. And the moral equivocation, Israel has done bad things as well. And Hitler wasn't, that bad of a guy, right? I do still think that they are the minority. Again, it's because they're popular, they're famous, they're platformed. And so people like to pay attention to them. But when you go into the average American church, they see it the right way. When you see CUFI High School, which is an endeavor that we started recently because when we understand post-COVID, right, that these students aren't just showing up blank slates, that this indoctrination, it has happened insidiously. They don't even know that they're being indoctrinated with anti-Semitism because it's not called that anymore, right? So we have CUFI High School, public schools, Christian schools, and the kids, this message is resonating with them because they believe the Bible to be true. And they will stick with it. If the Bible says it, they believe it because they have been taught in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we should be encouraged, I don't care what anybody says about the millennial generation, the same way that I'm sure Israel is encouraged seeing these lions and lionesses of Judah. I've spent my week in this country, I'm not going to cry. These young kids that are laying it all out, heart, soul, mind, and body. The heroes of Israel that founded this nation in 1948 You have to take solace in the fact that that same heroism continues into these kids that are 18, 19, and 20 and fighting with the same fierceness because they know what they're fighting for. Similarly, those who believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we know what we're fighting for. And we're fighting for our future. To say I'm fighting for you is an insult because it implies you can't fight for yourself. I am honored to fight alongside you because it means I get to live another day.
Well spoken.
Life here in Israel hasn't just been about physical recovery. It's about people trying to rebuild from the ground up. So many hardworking Israelis, bakers, artisans, small shop owners had their lives turned upside down. Some were called to reserve duty. Others had to leave their homes. Many lost months of income almost overnight. And now they're trying to start again, to reopen their businesses, to restock shelves, to get back to doing what they love. But it's not easy, guys. They need help. And that's why Arta exists. Arta partners directly with these small businesses, buying their handmade goods and delivering them in beautiful boxes to homes around the world. Each box helps real families get back on their feet. It puts money in the hands of those working hard to recover with dignity, not charity. Now, if you want to be part of that effort, go to www.artsabox.com/TBNIL and use the code TBNIL to get 10% off your next subscription. Again, that's Artzabox, ARTZABOX.com/TBNIL. One box, one family, one step closer to rebuilding Israel.
A lot of thoughts. So one on the young people in Israel. I don't know if you're aware of this. There was a whole conversation that happened where like the older generation of this country publicly repented to the young generation during the war, saying we doubted our young people. We said they lost vision, they lost the answer to the question of why we're here, and we're ashamed that we doubted them, and then we look at them and we're impressed by the men and women that we saw. I feel that way. I travel this country extensively. I'll tell you a story. I had people think that it's the people fighting in the front lines that are the heroes. It's the women and the men that are left at home with the kids are the true heroes. I had a soldier, this is in like month 2 of the war, and whatever, they were having family issues, they had kids, special needs, whatever. And he says, look, it's been several months, maybe you can find someone to replace me, et cetera, et cetera. And then he comes back the next day and he says, never mind. I said, what do you mean never mind? He's like, I talked to my wife, and he's this like very soft-spoken, gentle guy. She's like, we say in Hebrew, shtifa. She let him have it. And she says to him, she says, how dare you think of coming home while your brothers are still fighting in the front lines? And it was like the whole nation, in a moment, had we were reconnected to the answer to the question of why we're here and who we are. And it's like when you lose those things, you're worthless. You have nothing. And when you have the answers to those two questions, who am I? I'm the Jewish people in this land. Why am I here? Because God promised us, because God told us, because this is going to happen. I think it was a game changer to all of us. And that's what you've seen on the ground, is these incredibly brave, young men and women who've been fighting. It's something that's hard to imagine.
And I'm taking all of that home with me to America. I'm so glad that I was able to be here, especially during Memorial Day and Independence Day, especially after coming from Poland, from tragedy to triumph. I was with Brothers for Life yesterday and saw soldiers lost an arm and looked at his pictures of fighting in Syria with one arm because he just taught himself how to use his machine gun with his left, we know Israel will win because the Bible says. If I didn't believe the Bible, I would look at a picture like that and still say Israel will still win.
Let me say one more thing to you. As an American coming to Israel, you're not alone in the sentiment that you share. No. And every person we've met, and there have been a lot of them, and a lot of people that we barely knew, clients, friends, stuff like that, made a point of saying to us, especially in the first, let's say, 12 months of the war, We want you to know that what you're seeing on the news is not who we are. And again, the same message. We want you to know it's not who we are. And I think a lot of people in Israel, not I think, I know as a fact at this point, that a lot of people in Israel have had a shift in their head about how they look at sort of the map of our friends around the world. And they saw the political tension between then President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. You know, okay, they make a mental note, sababa, they don't get along, these two guys. But then they saw the overwhelming support from the Christian community. And it was something that I've never seen in my lifetime. And, you know, because sometimes there's a concern in Israel, wait, what's the agenda here? Sure. Why are they helping? Why are they donating? Why are they coming to the country? People don't really get it. And then they saw time and time again, and I think especially people who were in uniform for a season, they saw time and time again, and it shifted something in their mind because there were no strings attached. And there was no agenda aside from like, we want you to know that you're loved, that we're standing with you, that we care for you, whatever it is you need. And I mean, the number, you know the numbers. Yeah. Crazy amounts of donations, but it wasn't just like, it was more than that. It was a sentiment that went together with it, of care and love. And my sense is, and I'd be interested to hear your take, is that it woke something up in a lot of people outside of Israel. And a lot of people that in the past, and I've met a bunch of them, who in the past said, look, you know, it's political. Look, it's a tenuous topic. We don't want to touch this. Some of my congregants don't want to talk about this topic. They come out of that and they say, look, if everyone's discussing this and everyone's, honestly, half the people are lying about this, we might as well do something about this topic. And to me, that gives a ton of hope, because I see that this whole generation of people that weren't willing to touch the topic of Israel now suddenly coming to this understanding that they have to, because it's not going away.
You have to be on the right side of history. You have to be on the right side of history. If the Holocaust taught us anything, it's that the minority is capable of a lot when the majority of people do nothing. Yeah. And you see the images of 10/7, and if you want to say it's political or it's too complicated, then that is something that you're going to have a vertical conversation with God about. When you read the Bible and you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and you see what is happening to Israel and her people, both in this nation and America, in terms of the rising tide of anti-Semitism in our nation, and you choose to stay out of the fight, you're just picking a side, because there's only two.
But people don't realize that. Because it's uncomfortable, because it's like this very angry and violent conversation.
I think if you're talking about people in terms of citizens, perhaps. Nobody likes to be unpopular, and they perceive Israel as to be unpopular. Yeah. I think if you're talking about Christians and people of faith, then no. I think that they realize that it's going to be one way or the other. Not saying that they have changed their mind, but perhaps those who before equivocated a little bit, they see now, because never again became a slogan. It became a bumper sticker. And then 10/7 happened. And you had to decide the barbarism and the massacre that happened on that day, and the fear that this nation continues to live, I don't say fear, I hate the threat, that this nation continues to live under every single day. You have to pick. You're going to be dark or you're going to be light. And you have somebody to answer to much higher than any of us concerning where you stand. The Bible is extremely clear about that. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Yeah. And to do nothing is action. Inaction is action. And so, you know, I know for our people, they were 10/8 biting at the bit. We spend all of our money on education. 10/8, we started spending money on humanitarian efforts here in Israel, and organizations that were frontline organizations, that were smaller organizations where we could have a bigger impact. As soon as we started, we had to cancel trips. We wouldn't use the word cancel, we say reschedule. As soon as we could get back in this nation, when we weren't a burden, we came. Last April, we were all watching the same thing on the news. Iran is going to attack Israel. We had 2 trips coming. We called every person and said, hey, we're seeing what you're seeing. What do you want to do? Every person said, I'm going. And they all came. And they spent time in shelters in their trips. But they didn't equivocate on their support for Israel, wanting to be here, wanting to do something, because we feel, I'm sure, impotent, like people here, like when they can't fight or they can't do, what can we do? Everybody cannot do everything, but everybody can do something. And that is what we give our members the opportunity to do. Maybe you go to Washington and talk with your elected officials. Maybe you host a CUFI on-campus event at your home. You can't do everything, but you can do something. And everybody doing something is going to have a cumulative effect. And when the rubber meets the road, that cumulative effect is going to make a difference.
I completely agree. There's an image in my head. We were both at the March of the Living in Auschwitz. And if you looked at the map of the marching order for that, procession, A block, the presidents and like 400 bodyguards. B block was military personnel, and C block, number one on that list was you, CUFI. Really. And I looked at that and I had this thing, like, it clicked in my head. I think it's before we bumped into each other. And I said, I think it's very, very, very remarkable that it's the 80th year of the end of World War II and the Holocaust. And this procession is Holocaust survivors, their descendants, freed hostages. And in this moment that is in its entirety, it's a Jewish moment of collective grieving and also celebrating the victory and the life that came out of it. Prominent and front and center on that whole thing is a Christian organization from the US. And I think that speaks a whole lot, one, about the impact of the organization over the years, of just generating legitimacy and chipping away at the apprehension and the fear that people felt. Again, like thinking in the Jewish collective mind, the Nazis were related to Christianity. Sure. And here you have 80 years later, you have a prominent Christian organization marching together with the Jews to remember the Holocaust. That says a lot. And I think it's commendable. I think it also shows an incredible shift in the way people perceive these kind of things. And to your point, it's this sort of the unity of destiny between the Jewish people and the Christian people that I feel like October 7th events really transformed, in the sense that people understand that we're intertwined with each other and that our interests are intertwined to yours and vice versa. They go together indefinitely.
Exactly. Pastor Hagee has said from the beginning, if there's a line to be drawn, draw it around us both, Christians and Jews, for we are one.
We're at Auschwitz, and for me it was my first time, and I grew up with, like, in Israel we simmer with this story of the Holocaust. And then all of it together, for me the biggest moment is the freed hostages, because it touched an exposed nerve of realizing how relevant and how timely this whole thing is. Antisemitism isn't a thing of the past. Jew hatred isn't a thing of that's gone in any way, shape, or form. I felt, as a Jew in that place, I felt very vulnerable. It puts you in this place of, I don't want to say fear, but concern, because it's so present, it's so there. We met with the freed hostages, and then I look at this, and what you guys are doing is making sure that this remains relevant and a talking point. And in this world, which you said this about, it's so complex. The media world that lies and spins and is busy with today's headlines. There need to be multiple voices that call people back to sort of like, hey, focus, this is what's really happening here. And I feel I was having an earlier conversation today. People get carried away with, like, the politics of it. Oh, what if you did this, and what if you did that, and what if we did this with the Palestinians? It's not about the politics. This is all spiritual, and it's all biblical, and it cannot be resolved otherwise, because we've tried. God knows we've tried. This is the only way to look at this. So as we're wrapping up, where are you taking all of this? In 20 years, what does the educational effort look like, and what is the message people need to hear in the first world about Israel?
Well, I would say there's no finish line in what we do. So in 20 years, we'll still be doing what we're doing. Our effort is not measured by the life of one man or one person. Pastor Hagee believes there is no success without a successor. I assure you, our bench is deep. I am the second generation of what is now 4 with respect to Christians United for Israel.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. And so this is not a terminal for an organization like ours. We always have a plan. And in 20 years, if Messiah hasn't returned, we'll be doing what we are doing now. And we will always adapt to confront Israel's enemies, because we always know that they do adapt. And we will be there at every single turn, confronting anti-Semitism in all its forms and wherever it can be found. But, to your point, on that day in Auschwitz, to see, for me personally, Pastor Hagee, who's 85, at the 80th anniversary with 80 survivors. And he talks about, there's pictures of him as a little boy and he doesn't have toys. He's dressed as a soldier with a makeshift gun and he's hunting Nazis. And he remembers sitting at his table as an 8-year-old, listening to the radio when Israel became a nation. And to see him there that day, and Kufi and our delegation, to bear witness, to march in to Auschwitz, surrounded by Jewish people, but also have the blessing to march out, and to say that the difference between now and 80 years ago is that the Christians are locked shoulder to shoulder with the Jews. They are not usurping our faith. The Nazis and many who came before them, the Crusaders, Martin Luther, usurping the Christian faith in order to perpetuate terror and violence and genocide on the Jewish people. We've gotten it right. The 2,000-year flinch was real and justified concerning the Jews' concern for the agenda of the Christian. But we are now entering our 5th decade of showing the Jewish people, hopefully, what a friend looks like, and that we are not doing it for any other reason than to obey the biblical mandate, to do what we can, to stand with Israel and her people, wherever those people are. So it was a special time for me personally, and I promise you that with respect to Christians United for Israel, Israel is never alone, and there is no finish line in this fight for us.
Well, good. I'm happy to hear. And I'll just say this, that, and I know people don't like patting themselves on the shoulder, you're on a bit of a victory lap in Israel right now. Your organization has done a huge amount for different organizations in this country. And I look at this as an Israeli. It speaks so much to the change of heart that people have had. No more apprehension, no more concern. Without getting too nitty-gritty into the end-time theology, I know that's your dad's thing. But it talks about like this thing where nations come together. And I think 5 years ago, if you would have asked the average Israeli, they would say, no, I don't see that happening. Now they see it. Now they see the shared values, and they see the shared effort. They see the sentiment, they see the heart behind it. They see the true passion that people carry, yourself, your family, the organization, and it moved the needle for them. And in that sense, you look at that, it's like everyone in retrospect looks at history and says, oh, obviously this happened. No, it didn't. It wasn't obvious at all. And where we're standing today is a unique place in time where people can look at that and say, like, look, for the people of Israel, here's a friend that we didn't imagine and didn't understand just 2 years ago. And today, people get it. Then if you look into the future, well, how is the next thing going to happen? That's how. It opened up people's mind to understand it, to lose the fear of, we'll call the disciples of Christ in this land. And that is something very, very substantial. That in itself is incredibly substantial. It's a miracle, and I'm glad it's working. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mati. If you've stuck around so long, make sure to pause this video and share, like, and subscribe to this video and any video that we have. The reason we ask you to do that is because it helps us get to more people with the truth about what happens in this part of the world, and that is what we're here about in TBN Israel. So pause this video, like it, share it, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.